riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
What's up, guys? Brad Chappell back with the Crappie Compound with a couple special guys today. Como, Mississippi, the Crappie Magnet, B&M, Hook and Bullet, Cornfield Fishing Gear, big giveaway, fun festival, weekend, whatever you want to call it. It has been a blast, and I want to start off by thanking Mr. Les Smith for doing all this, opening at his beautiful place he's got here, and I've had an absolutely ball. So, full-fledged thank you from me.
Oh, you bet, Brad. Glad to have you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll let each one of these guys introduce themselves. And John Mayo, he's going to do a little introduction, but I'm going to pick up from him in a second too.
So I'm John Mayo. Grew up right here on the Big Four. Les and I have been friends for probably going on 30 years. I call him my big brother, and grew up here fishing with him and his dad.
Yeah.
And I work for JH Guide Service here in Mississippi and guide year-round for them here on the Big Four.
Go ahead and do a little. I think I'd introduce you some, Les, but go ahead and you can kind of fill in the rest I might have forgot.
Brad, I'm just an average Joe, man. I like to fish, and just very fortunate over the years to have good friends and in the crappie world, and fortunate to have a father. That got me into crappie fishing. And my dad was, he was my hero.
Oh, I can understand that.
It taught me how to power troll, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And so excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a technique that, it's fun to take everybody and do. It's not one of these techniques, and I love them all. I know John loves them all too. I love doing them all, but this is one of these techniques that, and let's just mention it, I don't know if we was recording or not at the moment, but adrenaline rush.
It is. It really is.
Explain that to me a little bit, Les. Why do you think that's such an adrenaline rush for you?
Power trolling is everything you do is fast. Fast and furious is one of the words we use.
Fast and furious.
Yeah, adrenaline rush. Put her in the wind. I mean, these are all things that we talk about. And when you're in a boat, it's just everything happens so fast. And and everything's big.
Yeah.
You got big poles. I mean, we're using 18-foot B&M power trollers. We've got 3-ounce weights.
Wow.
I mean, you got to be careful not to knock somebody out. I've been hit upside the head before with them. Yeah. But everything's big and everything's fast. You cover a lot of water. What's so cool about it is from May the 15th is about when John and I start power trolling.
You're around May 15th?
6 months.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. We run it all the way through October, into November when things start slowing down a little bit. But so you got all summer to do it, unlike a short spring cycle.
Yeah.
And short winter cycle. But, hey, man, it's... You get in the boat, you get your buddies, you just have a ball. I mean, and the great thing about it, I'm going to get you in the boat with me. We're going to do some dual action. I want to learn to long line better than what I do. And I do it, but not the way you do it.
Yeah.
And I want to learn that. But if I can ever get those two techniques unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah, and go ahead, and I want both of you you can describe when somebody's never done it before. Go with the basic setup like you kind of touched on, but let's hear about that setup. Are you fishing out front, mid, or what? How are you really doing power trolling?
Well, power trolling is on the front, and if you sit and think about it, it's identical to long lining, where you're basically throwing jigs out the back and you're pulling jigs. We're dropping jigs on the front and we're pushing jigs.
Yep.
And with the weight on the top, the way we run it, it runs just like a long line setup. So basically, you don't have any resistance with that 3-ounce weight on top. We run a 5-foot leader. And sometimes I think John and I run pretty much identical. I run a 1/8 ounce on top, 1/4 ounce on bottom. I know some buddies of mine run 2/4 this time of year. And if you look at it on a live scope, you'll see exactly how it runs.
Yeah.
But if you got a weight above it, and it just kind of runs at about this angle right here. So it runs just like a long line setup. But the point is, you don't have to make a 100-yard
That's
loop.
right. You can stop it and go it.
Stop, go, turn, flip, do whatever.
Right.
And I mean, we've been in fish before, and you're not really paying attention, running at 1.7 or have the cruise on, and next thing you know, you're running in circles.
Yeah.
And you're still catching fish. I mean, it's like, oh, get that pole, boom. And
What size line do you guys recommend when you're going to do a power trolling?
So running the 3-ounce weight,
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's a heavy weight, and Les and I have run a 15-pound main line is what we've ran for several years. So how we make our rig up, so we run a 15-pound main line. We tie our leaders up, as we call them, with 10-pound monofilament. We use all monofilament. So we run a 3-ounce egg weight up our main line, tie a barrel swivel, and our rig, from the barrel swivel, we come down 2 foot, tie a loop knot, just like you would long lining, but we clip one of the lines to where we have a single leader.
Yep.
And we make about a 6-inch leader. We come down 3 foot from there and put our bottom bait. Now, he and I both use, and it's primarily the only time I use these, but we both use a fast snap. And the reason we do that, we'll swap out a lot of baits through the days. One color, just like you long line, one color will get hot. And by running these leaders this way, we don't have to retie and that leader get shorter, over a period of time. My favorite thing about it guiding, I run 8 poles out the front. Fish out of a 21-foot skeeter, and I've got rod holders right in front of my consoles up on my front deck. So I run 4 long lines out the side. And best part about it, you go through a school, catch them off the front, then you get those fish in, you get a couple fish on the back. Well, I just set the hook on them, and if it's a big fish, my customer just spin around in the seat, I hand them the rod, reel them up, net them. Sometimes,
I bet it gets chaotic. I bet that's the Fast and Furious part in it.
Well, yeah, because you gotta imagine when a fish hits it and you're running 1.7, that fish is coming up behind you. It's not. It's not like just slow trolling and picking them up right there. You're running hard. That fish is coming up on the side of the boat. So now you got to figure out how you get around, get a net on him, and that sort of thing. And all of a sudden you look up, and we run these little beads too. I'll tell you that little trick. But between the second and third eye, we have a little glass bead, and because it gets so fast and furious, you're not always looking at those poles.
For the sound.
For the sound.
On the rod, okay.
Yeah. And the minute one hits it, you can be in the back of the boat putting a fish up, and that thing go off, and you're going to hear it. Yeah. And so we do that, just a little trick of the trade. But everything's so fast, and I guess that's what I like.
I think I'm going to have to name this show title Fast and Furious. I like it.
So Les and I have talked about a power trolling trip probably happened 10, 12 years ago. He and I fished a Magnolia tournament at Enid Lake together. And wind probably blew 20, 25 mile an hour that day. And we would start out on the south bank. He would throw chains out the back, old school chains, just back 4 paddles and all. I'd put the poles out and we would blow across Enid Lake. And it was probably 3-foot whitecaps that day, and the poles would come up and they would slap the water, go under the water, When we would come back up the wave, 3 or 4 of them would be stuck in the water. And by 11 o'clock that day, we got to arguing who was going to pick the pole up. I was so tired.
Oh my!
Oh yeah, so get
No, I ain't doing it. You got to do it.
I bet we caught 200 fish that day.
Yeah.
I was cramped up, wore out. I didn't even care if we went to the weigh-in.
Yeah.
But man, we have had, one of the biggest things that pops into my head, Mr. A, Les's dad, I called him Pop. He was like grandfather to me.
Yeah.
Got to carry him on one of his last fishing trips to Arca Butler. And Les and I talk about that day. We've got a picture of him. And I'll never forget that water level was 228.55 at Arca Butler. And there's 5 cypress trees that we fish around, and Pop and I look like a bunch of Indians running around those 5 cypress trees that day. And absolutely.
Do you remember the colored jigs I bit that day?
We were using, Pop would holler, we'd catch one, he'd holler out, touchdown LSU, purple and chartreuse.
Isn't that crazy how you remember that kind of thing?
He would always holler out, touchdown LSU. And without a doubt, one of the most memorable days that I'll never forget. And, it just, we started out years ago doing it. When we started out power trolling, Les's favorite speed was 1 mile an hour. And throughout the years, we've gotten faster and faster. And Les, I've had this happen numerous times. We'll leave the rods in the water and crank the gas motor up. And I mean, we'll be idling
3 or
back
4
up.
miles.
And you'll look up and you'll think you done got it sucked up in your big motor, and you go up there and you're thinking, man, I done hung a big old white bass, and you grab that rod and pick it up.
Big old crappie.
Big old crappie. You cannot outrun them.
That's exactly what Dad always used to tell us. He say, boys, if a crappie wants it, you can't outrun him.
Yeah.
So something we've learned here in the last few years, and Les and I have taken this technique up, especially Les, but myself also through the years, we're learning more every year.
Oh yeah. Never stop learning.
And we've learned, we started speeding up. We went from 1 to 1.2 to 1.4, 1.5. Last year was probably the first year we run 1.7 all year long.
God, that's crazy.
And from a guide perspective, Brad, I absolutely love it, and I tell you why. We take kids. You never know who you're going to have on your boat, just like you, and it's just like long lining. Power trolling, you don't have to worry about a hook set.
Yeah.
Minnow fishing in the spring and fall, you can get the bite some days, but you're not going to put lots of fish in the boat some days. With power trolling, you can take. I had John Harrison's son, Coop.
I thought
grandson.
you was going to talk bad about John Harrison.
No.
It's like, wow. I thought he could catch fish.
But we had Coop out with us this morning, his little grandson, and a little old bitty thing. And, we're going along 1.5 today, and, John and I sitting on the cooler back there just talking, carrying on, laughing, and we'd look up and say, oh, there he is, Coop, and we'd let him go up and get the rod. You didn't have to worry about setting a hook. It's just a relaxing, you can kick back and
cover
have
water.
Fun. Cover water, that's the main key to power trolling, is covering water. Now, you and I have talked a lot about pay attention to detail.
Yep.
Les can tell you also, some days you can get on these big flats and just take off. Other days we get on creek channels and river channels, and I mean, you can be 4 foot one way or the other, they're right on that drop off. So still, even with power trolling, you've got to pay attention to details. Color baits get hot.
Jig heads.
Jig heads.
I noticed here in the couple days I have fished, I think 2 days, I have noticed a pattern on blades. No doubt. They're liking a small blade instead of a big blade. No doubt.
And
you take that one to the bank.
And I hear people say that fish don't look at color. And I sat there thinking,
I don't agree.
I'm sitting there thinking, no way,
well, if you're
man.
putting it in their mouth.
I mean, yeah. I sit there and there's days we'll have one color on all 16 setups on the front.
Absolutely.
And, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, who said they don't pay attention to color? And
I think it's like I said, it's about, well, if we're all sitting here and I've got, somebody shoving some in my mouth, and I might just bite it. But I'm not going to go to the other side of this room and go pick it up unless it's
That's
a
right.
banana pudding later on or something.
That's
You
right.
know what I mean? But I think a color is attracting to me. I've just spent too many hours, just like you guys, where color has made a difference between, catching a few or catching a lot. Now, it can be, several colors, but there are going to be some colors they won't eat.
I agree. And that's interesting you said about the blades, the big blades, little blades.
Yeah.
And, I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
But I can see where that.
I've seen it in the last 2 days.
The thing that people that I guess need to remember about power trolling, it's all reaction.
Yep.
Reaction,
Yep.
strike.
Absolutely.
And, I like a minnow. I mean, if you can sit there on a live scope, you can watch a minnow and a fish can come up and, they'll mouth that old minnow,
Yeah.
pull the scales off of it, decide, spit it out. Do I want it? Do I not? They don't have time to think
Nope.
about it power trolling.
That's right.
I mean, it's coming through, and I think it's like all of a sudden you can see on a live scope and you'll see one go by and you'll see him whoop, whoop, and he's got it. And they don't have time to think about it. It's all reaction.
What poles are you guys using? I want to know.
Oh, B&M power troller.
Power troll.
The only one.
Yeah, I was fortunate a few years back with Kent and Jack, and they'd asked me to look at prototyping some. We were actually looking at them out there today. I have the prototypes out there. I want to
Yeah.
keep them for
Oh,
just to say, hey, here's where we started one day, and. But we ran those things all summer and
Tweaked them around.
tweaked them around and changed this, changed that. And man, what an awesome pole.
Yep.
And I mean, when you put a 3-ounce weight on it, it's got a firm backbone, but it's also got a really good tip on it. And but
I
I
noticed
run
this week too, as you're moving a pretty good clip, and I've been pulling 1.2 to 1.5, but I've seen a lot of subtle bites where they're just very much just grabbing that bait and swimming with it. And then all of a sudden you'll get another bite, and they want to about take the pole
Yeah.
back with them. But some of them are very subtle bites, and I think a lot of people think, well, that it's not a fish just barely pulling that pole back. And
Oh, it is.
hook sets are free, and I tell everybody when they get on my boat, they don't cost anything extra. So if you think that fish might have bit it, set the hook.
And, talking about a subtle bite and everything, you'll even have bites on that heavy pole and
Yeah.
heavy weight. You'll almost like minnow rigging. You'll see that pole ease
Yeah.
up. I mean, it's, I think the fish, grabs the bait and swims forward with it
Yeah.
and just takes the tension off the rod.
I'm gonna try to give you people a little tip, because I get a million people message me saying, "How do you rig up?" And I mean, we got the stuff out there, and you're
Yeah.
giving it to them right now. If they'll just watch and listen,
Yeah.
look, there's a million ways to rig up.
Absolutely.
You know that, and everybody's gonna do it their way. It doesn't matter. They want to know, but do they do it that way? Do they not? Let me tell you what you're gonna find out. And if you put the weight on bottom, and you think about what I'm telling you, you can put a 1/2 ounce weight on bottom, you can put a 3/4 ounce weight, you can put a 1 ounce weight on bottom, and you can catch fish all day long. Why is that? They don't really feel that weight. It's small enough, and it doesn't affect them with a bite.
Yeah.
You move up to a 3-ounce weight,
Oh, yeah.
and it's on the bottom, and you got a jig right above it or one above it. The minute they hit that line, what you got dangling down there, they can feel that weight.
Yeah.
All right. Now, John, I'll tell you, we were out there, and I've run that way for years, but fish would hit it, and you'd say, man, we got to call them drive-bys. So
Yeah.
there's a drive-by.
Fast and Furious, man. It's got
yeah.
some hitchhikers, everything going on.
And then, so we got to playing with setups and all that, and I said, well, I'm going to try the Captain Coleman rig. So I moved it around, put it in the middle. Same identical thing. So in other words, what happens is it actually was worse, in my opinion, because it was so close to both baits at that point that whether they hit it on top, hit it on bottom, they could feel that weight.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I'm sitting there, and I'll guarantee you, I learned it from you, because I've quizzed you a million times.
Oh,
I'll call you and say, Brad, tell me, how to long
What I need to
line,
pull.
man, and what I need to do, and what I decided was I'm going to put this weight on top. Now, when you first do it, you're going to think you're crazy because that thing gets to shaking around up there and the weight on top and bait's going everywhere. And it takes a little while to figure it out. But and a lot of people, I try to tell them, I don't use a bait a weight that doesn't move. In other words, I want it running up that main line. So when that fish hits it down there is no resistance.
Right.
That weight is running on up that line, and they're hitting it way back here.
Yep.
So when they initially hit it, it's just like long lining.
Yeah.
And so run it any way you want to, but I'll guarantee you it will out catch the other two ways of rigging up.
I believe you, no doubt. And guys, I can't appreciate both of you enough. John Mayo, he comes on every Tuesday night with me on Today's Bite. Thank you. It's not unnoticed. Les Smith, thank you for all this weekend. It's been a blast. Cannot thank you enough as well. Guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn your notifications on. Join us Tuesday night. John Mayo helps us out every week.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
We're
I
going to
wish
have a
you'd
good
do
one.
it every night.
Well, I'll be divorced. I can't do that one. But it's a blast. I love doing it.
It really is.
But until next time, you got Brad Chappell here.
John Mayo.
Les Smith.
Holla.
About a mile from Big Muddy River, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can